it's so cool to finally connect with you because not only did I think you were interesting before, now with the whole context graphs
Yeah.
exploding, you put together such a thoughtful piece together on that, and I would love to dive into that. But before we do, I'll just let people know that yeah. So I'm Ian Pilon, and I'm an author of a book called Cultivating Clarity, and it's around the idea of what is context. I went on a journey to go learn that. Talked to 9 different people who are in the book. A couple standouts are Jeff Jonas, who I still like his definition of
Hmm.
context, which is to take things into consideration or to understand something by taking into consideration the things around it can help you understand and learn things better. Michael Levin, it was just mind blowing to have him talk about it from a biological standpoint, and a bunch of others, and Bob Mesta, who says, well, I learned from him that context is even more important than the product, and I was like, I've been in product for a decade or more, and I'm like, what does that mean? So, anyways, massive journey. But my book is more on the abstract level. It's more about like, and I framed it around customer discovery and how engineers can think about why context really matters. Now, fast forward, this was a year ago, fast forward to now, and things are starting to pop off. Context engineering became a theme. And it's awesome. It's right at the engineering level, which is amazing. But I'd love to get your perspective on it because it seems like you had this architectural framing around it, very deep from your
Hmm.
piece. So I want to just sort of meet more people that are excited about this
Hmm.
topic as me. So maybe help the audience understand who you are, and then we could dive into a little bit more of the meaty part around context and context graphs.
Awesome, awesome. No, yeah, glad to be here. And I mean, I always call myself a career software developer. I mean, it's kind of all I've known how to do, and it's really always been around media software or media management my whole career. If it's image processing, if it's live real-time video, if it's kind of, I mean, anything for broadcasters. Like I had a company that sold into ESPN and Fox and folks like that. So I mean, it's interesting to see. I mean, initially it was about how do we get media into our eyeballs, and now my whole vision is really okay, well, what's inside the media, what's the knowledge, and it could be in documents, it could be audio, it could be images. And spent some time after I sold my last company as a CTO for like drone imagery and then some sports data that I worked on. And so it's all ways to kind of manage and it sort of get more information intelligence out of the media. And now the last 5 years, it's been really a focus on initially, okay, what does an unstructured data platform look like? I mean, there's structured data platforms like Snowflake and I mean different databases and things, but I have this vision that I mean there really isn't something similar for unstructured data, and that's even more so. That was 5 years ago, and now it's. I mean, 3 years ago the Gen AI wave hit, and now I mean you could just call it context. And so to kind of bring it back around where I think everything I've been doing for most of my career now is this context layer. And that's kind of really what we're focused on now. And I can definitely dive into that. But yeah, that's who I am.
So cool, so cool. And then maybe just talk about your current Graphlet is what it's called, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So the company's Graphlet, it's a developer platform. So it's I
Yeah,
mean
thanks for
the
having me here. Happy to be here.
started off
We're
kind of
super
looking
excited.
more top down as an application, and then 3 years ago flipped it to just sell the platform itself. And initially, it was something you would build on for like RAG applications. You could ingest all the data, you could do the retrieval, you could build chatbots, you could integrate into existing apps. And then what we started to see over the last year was the consumer of that is starting to be agents. It's not just people writing code to our SDK or API. It's hey, how do I expose this via MCP? How do I expose this via a I mean, tool calling and things like that. And so what we've kind of now honed what we do is um, you give us a corpus of data across 30 different data sources that you could plug in. We'll organize it for you automatically, which means and this is where the kind of index it in time, index it in space, index it in a graph. Like that was always my vision is like do the work up front to organize it as well as you can, then it makes retrieval and downstream better. And that's really where we start to see the sweet spot where we try and make it super easy for people just to plug data in and then they can consume it however they want. and now it's really, I think 2026 is all about consuming by agents
Yeah.
rather than anything else.
So cool, so cool. Yeah, and if I remember when you were on Mike Bird's podcast, you touched a bit on that, and wow, the world can change real fast. So
Hmm.
I got excited about agents and now run AI Agents Waterloo. We got a hackathon about
Hmm.
voice modalities coming up in February, and it's just so exciting. And we have Bordy AI. Andrew's not going to
Hmm.
make it, but he's going to be a part of the event. And I have this experience with Bordy now that it just blew me away, where it was a multi-channel experience that was very fluid.
Hmm.
1 minute I'm talking to the agent, next thing I've got an email, next thing we're chatting in text,
Yeah, yeah, I've done the
and
same. Yeah, it's
it's just
great.
like whoa,
Yeah.
like this is where we're going. It was absolutely amazing. But let's back up to the unstructured data part
Hmm.
because I'm excited
Yeah.
about that. I've been collecting mural boards for a long time, and that
Hmm.
is one way that I've been able, the only way that I've been able to frame ideas that I get excited about, things I'm working on, and just by looking at it, I get, and that's what I'm doing on this other monitor when I'm looking over here. I've got all these screen grabs that I've taken from things that you've done around the topic, what you're doing, and I could just at a glance pick up
Hmm.
quite a bit of context, and I feel like that's a faster throughput. But it's hard, right? Like so I cannot reason, and I've been waiting a long time for this. There that if I open this mirror board as they got more complex,
Hmm.
Miro didn't have the best job at, well, they had no vision AI at the point where I wanted it. I was like, I need to
Yeah.
find something fast. This board is crazy. It's unstructured data. How do I access things that were on a screen grab? And it wasn't quite there. And I still actually
Hmm.
don't know if it's there. But nonetheless, how about your journey into getting excited about like the, unstructured data and why that you thought was an interesting problem to work on?
It's interesting because I mean, my first one, I mean, one of my first ideas, I kind of came at it from a couple different ways, but it was around a podcast discovery concept. And one of the things that I've been working in some sort of dabbling and building some ideas, but I was commuting from LA to San Francisco for a CTO job, and I'd go up 4 days a week, and I actually just decided to drive, and I would listen to podcasts the whole time.
Okay.
And one of the things was I realized while you're listening to a podcast, it's such a fire hose of data that you don't really think about until, I mean, when you have hours to drive to sit and think about when you're driving. But it's like, okay, what was that book they mentioned?
Yeah.
What was that topic they mentioned? Who was that person? And I got this idea of applying the graph work that I'd already done to navigate through a podcast in that way to say, well, can I double click on those different pieces and create a knowledge system that um, then you could look for commonality and see that, oh, what other podcasts was this guy on, or what other topics? I mean, what other podcasts from this topic? And it wasn't just search per se; it was almost like a way to pivot the data model in a lot of ways. And so that I started working on the side a little bit, and that kind of evolved into, okay, like what if we just did that for businesses? And I mean, how do you start to extrapolate that out some more?
Very cool. And I totally agree. When I was reading books, I always wanted to know these back channel links or
Yeah.
these hidden things about, well, how did this person actually get down this path? So
Hmm.
these edges are things that I'm most excited about now, not the nodes. It's kind of like, well, what was all this engineered serendipity in between events that led
Yeah.
somebody either down this path or this thing to get generated? Very exciting stuff. So now, what do you think about this explosion around people calling it context graphs? I guess is what was kind of sort of taking a hold, and maybe you can help tell a story that other people may not
Hmm.
be fully aware of, because we went from like graphing into context engineering and now context
Hmm.
graphs. Do you see a pattern of not only just marketing buzzwords, but why that evolution has happened to the degree where
Hmm.
people are literally trying to say, oh, there's a layer happening here and they're trying to define it?
It was a really interesting progression, and it literally blew up on Christmas Day for us. And I think it and Jaya and Ashu from Foundation Capital had released something a couple days before, maybe a week before. And I mean, I've been using the term, and we still use the term in context layer, and it's kind of a parallel to like the semantic layer. And I think the context graph described what we were already doing in a good way. And that's kind of where my article kind of came out, where we had never actually used the term before. I mean, before the holidays. And I don't know if I'd heard it as a proper noun even before that. But it was a good fit because um, it's already pretty much what we do. And they do go down some other rabbit holes that we don't, like the decision trace idea of capturing those kind of things. Um, but I think it was a really interesting thing that it was like the MCP buzz from a year ago almost, where I think the everybody was kind of talking about it individually, and then collaboratively, it just blew up. And so the articles that I had written were really, I mean, at first, I mean, what we have like a 250,000 views, I think, on the first article that I wrote, and it was great to see what we had worked on just get more eyeballs on it because I've been saying, I mean, this is what we're doing is really sort of pulling all the threads together of the vector indexing world, the graph world, the temporal indexing world. And I think it was a way to kind of show off what we've already been working on for 5 years, which has been great. But also, I think it's also a way to, like that last article you showed, was a way to be more pragmatic about
Oh, I
it.
love
Is
that.
it's not rocket science
I
in a
love
lot of
that.
ways, but it's maybe things that a lot of people haven't thought about.
Yeah.
And there's a balance there of like, for me, it was obvious because it's what we've already been doing. But I think a lot of people were like, wow, I have never thought about this way. So it was a really interesting way to see a conversation blow up. And the last thing I'll say is it did even give me ideas for our product where we had been working on something where we have the content layer, which is like your original emails and your Slack messages and your PDFs. And we have the entity layer, which are like the people, places, and things. And then we added in a fact layer, which is really like inferred facts about the content that are entity resolved. And that for us, it kind of helped, this whole conversation helped kind of finish that work because it really put it in the right context. And so it was a really interesting moment where I was like, oh, okay, I've been thinking about this a while. Now, okay, here it all sums up into this one thing.
Here it comes. And to give Jay
Yeah.
credit, I'm going to do a screen share just to
Yeah.
show other people what we're talking about it because yeah, this blew up and now everybody is like opening their minds to it. And I love how you
Mhm.
framed it around saying like we've been doing things like this for years. I felt the
Yeah.
same way with my book, but I'm not at not at the engineering level, but more like the behavioral science of customers and
Mhm.
why they make choices, right? So I wrapped my story around that, and then I was excited, like, oh my God, everybody's going to keep talking about it. And when people were framing it around context engineering, to me, I was
Mhm.
like, oh, it's cool, but now it's still only one layer, right? It's at a very
Mhm.
tactical level where I want to hope everybody can start to see that this, you know, you can't just call it everything because it's too ambiguous.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
when you can at least frame it in a container, whether that's around software or a customer's experience, then you can understand. Yeah, there's it's really important to grok this so that you're talking
Mhm.
about the same things with other people around you. It helps clarity of communication and so you do your piece, loved it, and then it's not stopping, right? So then
Yeah.
this one was really good as well. Daniel Davis, I seen he's following you, or you're following him, or you retweeted it.
Yeah, we've known each other for a couple of years and done a couple joint. We've done this State of Rag podcast at the end of the last 2 years now. So, but yeah, it blossomed into like all these different threads. And yeah, I love that y'all his post. I think that was yesterday, the day before, was really interesting as well.
Yeah, and like I can't even keep up. So I think we're at this whatever people are saying
Yeah.
this year is the exponential curve of like the singularity and all information comes in, and it's even more or like comes in so fast that you can't actually get it in your
Yeah.
webinar, right? So it's probably a great
Yep.
time that we talk about that. With the rate of change happening so fast, people
Mhm.
are feeling anxious that it's like, oh my God, I
Yeah.
can't actually keep up. And this is where I think context and you know, getting your head around it really is the ability
Mhm.
to zoom in and out of vector spaces of things that
Yep.
you're interested in. And it's helpful to actually, and this is my perspective, help me calm down and go like, I actually don't
Mhm.
need to know the entire world of information, but I'm really interested in the subject of customer discovery, um, uh, AI. And so in my head, I build a container around that and I start to have
Mhm.
context in my mind around that. But yeah, everything feels like it's going vertical. So I can't even keep up with how many articles are now coming up because of this. So I thought it was worth getting you on here just to have a conversation about it.
Yeah.
And then, so from here, what I'm wondering about next is, I got a couple other questions here.
Yeah.
Is so because your piece was really good, but what do you think people are getting wrong about?
Mhm.
And then we'll talk about like what's right, but and then
Yeah. Yeah.
everybody's semantically now trying to go, well, I think you mean this and this. So do you think that from where it's just blown up, is there anything that needs to
Mhm.
be said right away so that it doesn't spiral into misinformation about what context and graphing is?
And it was really interesting to see the first, like, I mean, I mean, you could write a PhD on what happened over those 2 weeks of like the information blossoming through and all the companies getting involved. Like, I mean, it would be really interesting to go and analyze that distribution.
Yeah,
But I think one thing I saw that I was I mean, I wasn't super supportive of was there was a lot of companies that just jumped on the
yeah,
bandwagon. That were like, I would look at them and I go, you don't do any of this. I
yeah,
mean, or you do like this tiny little piece, and now they're being like, oh yeah, we've been doing it. We're a context graph company, and I'm like, no, like this is a totally different thing. And even in my article, I admitted, I'm like, look, there's chunks of this we don't even touch. And like, I mean, we're not making the decisions for the companies. We're providing the ingredients. The companies have to make the recipe. And I would much rather see companies be pragmatic and be more self-aware of like, okay, you can still apply to this, but I mean, not every company has to jump on the bandwagon and be like, yeah, we do this too. And so
yeah, yeah.
I just thought that was just like ingenuous of like, just that's not helping the customer,
No,
and it's not helping people understand what is really going on here from a context point of view. And I think it's just being pragmatic again of just how do you apply the data that you have and the data in your environment, your kind of domain knowledge to something that you can make value of, and you don't have to do it all at once.
yeah,
And that's really, I think, the other point of it is a progression. And I mean, even for us, I mean, we're not doing everything in the world either.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I like how you said that. It's like just if nobody's ever done it before, like a mural graph, like you can get a pieces of paper. Like we've done this as kids. You're visualizing things and making
Yeah.
collages. But yeah, to then get more concrete and apply it to work, just like engineering, build a project, and
Yeah.
then you'll start to learn by doing. So I think that's great advice is for people to start somewhere. Like if you haven't gotten into it,
Mhm.
whatever that might be, but. It's just such a fascinating way, I think, to just get more throughput into my brain.
Yeah.
And I don't know, everybody learns differently, but for me, that's was a way that I could just learn
Mhm.
quicker. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. And then what do you think people are getting right about this now that it's blown
Mhm.
up to many different articles? What do you think are
Yeah.
the themes that are common that you're like, yeah, everybody's getting this, they're grokking it. That's correct the way it's going in that direction.
No, I think it's what I've kind of seen. I think there's a saturation point now where I think people are. I mean, now there's a bit of a backlash where okay, some people are just getting sick of it, kind of like what happened with MCP like a
Totally,
year ago.
totally.
And I'm like, okay, that's fine. See, I mean, at least I hit the the wave early on,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
before people got annoyed with it. But I think I mean, to me, the one big takeaway is it's not just vector database anymore. I mean, it's a hybrid of context is not just text, and it's how do you deal with I like the people talking about the temporal angle. People are now coming around the graph, and there was a lot of backlash on graph rag like a year or two ago, and we always said like, look, I mean, it's just part of the equation. Graph rag is not a magic bullet, and so I think that's a really interesting kind of circle where now you're hearing graphs a lot again, but we even saw graphs on their own, like graph rag literally didn't really move the needle. But if you enrich the graph with data that wasn't in your original content, then you would pull in new data. And so to me, it was more of an index and hooks that you could pull in external data, enrich data. So I think we're now seeing kind of a second wave of these indexing techniques. And that was always something I tried to do of look, I mean, hit it from different angles, time, space, graph, whatever, and you don't know how you're going to use it later. I think that's a takeaway that most people are kind of grokking from this right now. Um, but the whole like decision trace and like all the other more corporate parts of that, um, I think are, I mean, not everybody can have to do that. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
and it doesn't even apply to everyone. Yeah.
And when you said temporal, are you talking about that like, yeah, like getting the time as part of
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Like when was the Slack message made or
yeah,
sent?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
When was that meeting and those kind of things? Because the way I look at it is, just to dive in, is think about if you were going to do this manually. You were going to like, okay, search my email in the
Mhm.
last 90 days. You're going to do a from, okay, who did this email come from? What's a tag or a label that was applied to it? And then, I mean, start to like carve down the data set. And then you could just start looking through it manually. And so I think a lot of that's what agents are doing now with tool calling is as long as you can carve down the context,
Yeah.
your agents can be more performant.
Hmm. Yeah. So, and what I learned from Jeff Jonas in my
Mhm.
book, when I had my discussion with him, who's solved the entity resolution problem, he talked, and this is where I really lit up when I
Mhm.
first got it from him, because it's such a simple storytelling and analogies and metaphors he uses, but he really just did an experiment. The one YouTube video, I don't know if it's still on the internet. This is so old, but it was like he told it in a way to me that I could just understand, and which was like,
Mhm.
hey, if you're putting a puzzle together, it was more around entity resolution issues as well and data, but just that, once you have a framing of your puzzle and you're looking at a picture, you're building it in, um, you increasingly can go faster putting the puzzle together as more context
Mhm.
builds, because you're like, okay, the color, it's just, you get
Right. Right.
faster, right? At the beginning, you're slow. You've only got the edges, right? Because you're building context
Mhm.
around, well, what piece, but as the picture comes together, the
Like,
optionality space is reduced, and all of a sudden there's a faster ability to
mhm.
go understand what to do next. So I really love these ideas about thinking analog, about these concepts, and
Mhm.
how they're now coming into I guess, the business world, because AI is the first
Mhm.
time now I can go, oh, I always wanted to do this, but I couldn't talk to the data. And
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
I can like say, hey, you've got vision. Now, you can talk to my Miro board where it was very unstructured.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
always, I hated, I didn't like that it was like, all your folders and the way that you organize your knowledge base is you should do it this way because somebody did it that way. And there's all these recommendations
Right.
on
Right.
how to recall information. And I'm like, I don't want to do any of those. Right.
Yeah.
It's just my,
Yeah.
my bias, my personal point of view.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to go here and spend hours trying to organize a system. I really don't. I want to say that's messy. If
You
I
want to
feel like
dump it.
cleaning it
Yeah.
up,
Dump it in.
I'll go do it. But other than that, like a messy builder's room, or, they kind of know where everything
Yeah.
is. Bob Messa talks about that in my book as well. It's like other people don't know where anything is, but I know where everything is. And it's kind of interesting
Yeah.
when you have your own tacit knowledge about that unstructured data.
Mhm. Mhm.
Very cool. Very
I
cool.
mean,
Go ahead.
a classic data point I had heard when we first started the company was people saying, I mean, we have 20 or 30 years of data, and these were like architecture firms, construction firms, railways, and it was this classic thing where that's the temporal part is I like how do I look back in time? And the organizational side, I mean, and at the start when we started the company, we were like had a product and they're like, well, we're already using SharePoint. Like, why would we need this? And that knowledge context concept, just nobody really thought it was like they didn't even know.
That's
Like,
right.
and we were like, look, I mean, you can grab data on a timeline, you can grab it on a map and draw around an area that you want. You can do all these things to slice down your data set. And it was just like way above where people even thought was possible. And I think then the ChatGPT wave happened and people started thinking about unstructured data as a first class citizen. And then it just kind of it rolled from there. So
Yeah. Wow. What a time to be alive, right? Where exactly there was almost like it was frozen, waiting to be unlocked. And then
yeah.
I'm in customer discovery and customer research. So yeah, a lot of my work is qualitative data, and
Yep.
it takes me hours. Well, it used to, not anymore. But it used to take
Mhm.
me, I would do my customer discovery calls to learn how to make software better. Talk to people for an hour sometimes and just extracting all the pain points and friction, where their
Mhm.
goals are, what are they trying to do. I would spend, sometimes 2 hours, 3 hours on a one
Mhm.
hour session to pull out all of this rich
Yeah.
context. And then I would have to then go inform stakeholders and executives to say, hey, this is what we learned. And
Yeah.
now anybody can do that. But I'm doing it in Lightspeed now. I still get to do this. I get to have my
Mhm.
customer
Mhm.
discovery calls. But in the end, now I've got AI and I'm just like, hey, this is what I'm looking
Yep.
for. in some examples, I don't think that's still as good as not as good, but it's different if I do the analysis of the video myself, right? Because I
Mhm,
right
mhm.
now I can see your emotions and
Yeah,
when I run an analysis on a transcript, it doesn't know what Kirk was
right,
smiling
right,
about or
right.
not, right?
Well, but the multimodal side of it, that's what gets interesting too,
Yeah,
because then if you layer in like a video indexer that can look at, I mean, facial recognition, and that's where like, and having that video background, broadcast video background, it's like I think of it kind of like a video
oh,
editor. Like
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah,
have
yeah,
those channels of data
yeah.
that are time synced. And I did a lot of work in closed captioning over the years, and that was once it
Oh,
clicked that that was time synchronized metadata. Like the text
oh
that you
yeah.
at each frame essentially is kind of like that temporal aspect. And so I visualized a lot of this in that video editor, like Adobe Premiere kind of
Yeah,
concept.
you're way ahead.
And
Yeah, yeah,
that I think is, I mean, that's kind of where we're at now. It's like if you can, and that timeline may be years of data on
yeah,
that video editing timeline,
yeah.
but then you can start breaking it down and there's, I mean, honestly, that's like you've seen Palantir in a lot of these conversations and in the writing, and we joke that we're kind of like a Palantir light. I mean, we're sort of, I mean, it was a way that you could process these signals in the different ways and give people capabilities of this kind of thing. But I think that's kind of where everything's going now
Yeah, it
is
is.
understanding that multi-channel kind of data world.
Yeah, and yeah, totally. And I also think it's going to accelerate because if everybody can build tools, well, not everybody, but a lot of people can build solutions to their own problems now. And a
Mhm.
lot of software has been like, they didn't have the ability to build the solution to the
Yeah,
problem. Now they can talk to Grok or talk to Claude, and they're building their own
yeah,
solutions. So in my opinion or my perspective, it's never been more important now to realize how important it is to understand the context of the people you're trying to serve around you,
mhm,
because they are going to have less needs now that they're able to fulfill themselves.
yeah,
But now we don't want to do everything by ourselves. So I will still hire other products and services to do things for me. I don't want
yeah.
to build this microphone, right? So I bought it. But even in software, there's some things that I'm just building as disposable software, and some things I keep. So, like you said, it's now's the time. So, where does that take you and your company?
Mhm,
What are your goals this year to
mhm.
just sort of like capitalize on the moment, because you've been ahead of the curve, and now it feels like it's iron hot for you. What does that do for you?
I mean, it was an interesting year because I mean, last year with the whole AI coding agent kind of timing, as well as I mean, MCP, I think fed into that, and kind of standardization, I think fed into that. I mean, we really see this year as look, we have this platform that I mean, honestly, is really solid. It's been running for years, and now it's okay. How do we build on top of that even more layers for customers, or how do we just focus on the developer experience and just make it way easier to use.
Cool.
And I think that was a lot of what we focused on in Q4 was here's a remote MCP server. You throw data into us, you don't even need to write any code. You just throw it into
Beautiful.
N8N, you throw it into Claude, whatever you want. Um, and we've kind of finished out all that OAuth and MCP stuff. And but now we also focused on we released something called Grapplet Studio, which was really like a no code environment for putting data in. Because that was another thing people always wanted is like, look, okay, I can consume it easily, but I don't want to have to write code to put data into this
Yeah.
thing. And that was where we were just an API and an SDK before focused. But now we're like, oh, okay. I mean, you kind of get it's like iPhoto for your data where you just throw it all in and we'll organize it for you. And so I think we're trying to reduce friction this year for one. Um, the other is really focused on the what do I say the deployment side of it. The customers. I mean, we're a multi-tenant system. We've had people wanting, like, can I get a private version of this or
Yeah.
private deployment, a managed, and it's something we've talked to people about. It never really clicked in, but now people are like, okay, like what would it really mean to run my own one of these?
Yeah.
And I think as people like that noisy neighbor problem, we're going to hit more and more, where people are going to want their own, and
Yeah.
we're not architected as a like an open source platform. You run it yourself, but we can do like a managed service
Very
version where
cool.
it's like a private API.
Very
So
cool.
I think that those are all more scale and a little more kind of future kind of things,
Yep.
but and then just data sources. I mean, now we're starting to expand more into structured data, like CRM data, which maps to the graph. So it's like graph ETL is something that we started adding, and that actually got a lot of interest um, because we had we pretty much covered everything from Notion to Google Docs to email to whatever. And now we literally just added meeting recorders. So like if you're using Fireflies or you're using any of these, we can take the transcripts that are already built there and pull them in. Normally we transcribe audio, but if you just have the transcript, now we can take that as well.
Beautiful.
So it's all about developer experience. It's, I mean, how do we meet people where they're at and just, I mean, not have them have to build extra stuff.
Amazing, amazing developer experience. So okay, then your customer base is developers. Is there any more? Like, if you could reach to anybody and say, "This is the customer I want," who do you want on your radar? Because maybe this, serendipity might pull them your direction. Who should talk to you?
I mean, I'm really surprised by the diversity of the customer base that's been hitting us lately. Like we had an e-commerce company in Europe that was like they're building chatbots for support agents for their product, but they're kind of like an in-house brand where they build it all. It's almost like a mini IKEA kind of thing. And I was like, wow, you guys are like, and they're pretty AI savvy, like they're pretty aware. And I was like, wow, if there's somebody here that I would have never known how to market directly to them because but they found us. And then, or a company in Asia that just is like, okay, now they're building agents for their customers. And so, I mean, it's encouraging because it's everybody. I mean, it's not even, I mean, I could basically say anybody touching an AI agent that is kind of migrating from the DIY world of a couple of years ago, but they just want it to work. They just want to like throw data into something and they want to get data out and build it into their agents or their systems. So it's actually been really interesting. And I think our trick now is, okay, like how do we even market to these people to know that, let them know we're here. And we just need to keep doing that. Because it's
all right, cool. Then I'll give you I want to give a hat tip to Bordy on this. A lot of people that tried Bordy initially don't know what the experience is like now, but Andrew's done such really cool things with it that in my experience, I was getting a lot of Web3 introductions because some of them is still in that space, but hyper into the AI space. And I'm kind of like, well, I wonder if you can connect me to my customers. And I told Bordy about my ideal customer profile. Then he coaches me on how there's actually other ones I'm not even considering. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And now it's automatically, so he's setting me up
that's cool
meetings. Yeah. So like for real, I'm like, I had 5 before Christmas, and then I got to talk to Bordy again. I will be soon, but that's one new paradigm that I don't think people are quite aware of. That is absolutely a new paradigm. It's like it's crazy and a lot very exciting. So okay, very cool. So hopefully then when I publish this later, it reaches people that can go knock on your door. And then I won't take up too much more of your time. But how can people? And this was such a pleasure to talk to you, Kirk, because we've been trying to do it. We were teeing it up before before this year, but now it's actually happened. So super cool. But if people want to find you, where do they find you?
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I'm pretty active on Twitter. I mean, X, just my name, Kirk Marple, and then on LinkedIn, can find me there. And then Graphlet is, I mean, graphlet.com, and Graphlet on X as well. So,
amazing.
Yeah, I mean, and happy to, I mean, reach out. We have a Discord. Actually, the biggest thing is I love talking to customers that have some new project or have something, even if they're just a month away, a couple months away from understanding what they need. When people, like, we have a thing on our website, they can just grab time with me. And I learn so much from that. And I mean, love if I have 10 times more calls on my calendar just of learning what people are trying to build, because then we can anticipate better. So.
Oh, that's amazing. That's such a great way to end this, because that is something that I could try to help support you with. Because it's one of my favorite things to do, to talk to customers, because humans I mean, we get attached to ideas, we think, and assumptions, and you don't get to undo them until you talk to somebody who goes, oh, I had this bias. I thought you were really trying to do this or this. And there's like this subtle nuance that is a shift. And it's like, no, I'm trying to get this struggle out of the way. And then you're like, oh, I could tweak my thing and help you get unstuck.
Yeah.
So
I think with AI, I mean, I was just going to say, with AI coding, that part of the process has gotten so fast that I think we all need to like focus more on the what, not the how. And I think it's going to be an interesting year for that. So.
All right, cool, man. Again, Kirk, such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Same here.
And we will talk soon.